therefore, if we collect this corpus, what we have generally seen based on experiences of using corpus tool is that the output of your corpus study is only as good as what you put into it. And so that's why the design is very important. With regard to this, that's where the problems lie. The problems lie as to the design and how to collect data. And particularly in my presentation today, I'll be talking about web corpus, or the collection of data texts that you take online or from websites. And I don't know about you, for those of you who have tried this before, in the past I've been manually copy pasting these texts, and that's where I'm very delighted to share with you that there are numerous tools for collecting data online, and this is where Martin Wieser's website is useful, and I will talk about that in a bit, where he defines web crawlers or snaggers as generally grabbing web pages. The function of them are to collect the HTML links for you, and then making it easier for you to do your analysis. All right. Now, there are many tools. In fact, in the website, in Martin Wieser's website, there's a list of tools, but I am just going to choose IceWeb for today. And this is particularly, and not only because it's quite user-friendly, but this is recently used in my colleague and I, Shamini Turiman, and our paper on Malaysian letters to the editor during COVID-19 pandemic, which is kind of interesting that Dr. Mazura also shared her latest work on it. So that's pretty exciting to see how our studies may show certain findings on this recent pandemic. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about IceWeb then. In Martin Wieser's website, he defines IceWeb as particularly a utility for compiling, downloading, analyzing web corpora. And the name was chosen, this ICE, is based on the acronym for the International Corpus of English. It's another type of corpus. It's very much generic in a sense that you collect a lot of components under ICE. Although you may want to see what the corpus entails in full, so you can easily Google what ICE data or ICE corpus is. Just a little bit about the HTML or the website. This is the link, and rest assured, I will share my slides with the organizer to then send it out to those interested to find out about the hyperlinks in my slides or Dr. Mazura's earlier. And there are among 6 that he has listed, and this website is actually it was originated by Dr. David Lee, from a retired lecturer from University of Wollongong, and he kind of inherited, Martin Wieser kind of inherited this. And I find that I've been introduced to David's list of everything corpus-based, quite comprehensive there, and Martin fortunately has actually updated and made the website more friendlier to use. So, feel free to go to this corporate site, and you can find the IceWeb tool there. I'd like to just jump into what I find the necessary definition, because it's always important that we keep in mind what corpus or corpora refer to. And as Martin says here, he has taken this definition elsewhere, adapted a bit, where he says it's a collection of pieces of language or text, in other i.e. text, that are selected and ordered according to explicit linguistic criteria in order to be used as a representative sample of the language. So much of his definition here actually, resonates what Dr. Mazura has explained earlier. And so based on this definition, we will take a look at what is mostly important before we do start collecting our data. I think, on a personal opinion, suggestion, I think the first thing that you want to do before compiling your own corpus is to decide these two things. Number one, what is it that you are investigating? What type of language focus are you interested to study? Is it a written? Is it spoken type? What are the speakers? What level of proficiency? And that would relate or reflect in the second part, where you want to then look at representation, how your corpus is going to reflect the people that are using the language of your respective corpus. So again, it's very I cannot stress enough that this would be the important guidelines for you. So in order to contextualize this presentation, I felt like it's a lot easier to, just share a little bit about our study. This is a paper Shami Mituriman and I we sent to a local journal, and this is our recent study on the pandemic. And we just wanted to look at how Malaysians react to the pandemic, and particularly in a number of letters to editor during the early stages of the movement control order. So just having this in mind, we will then look at how IceWeb is used. So again, like Dr. Mazura has presented earlier, we want to begin with the corpus design. So these are some of the ideas that you can take from our recent study. Number one, you want to be able to answer or think about what it is that you want to gather. So from our point of interest, how Malaysians react. One of the ways we can, there's so many ways to actually examine how people react. You can do an experimental study, you can do quantitative survey, interview in nature, but in the area of corpus linguistics, you can look at their writing. The letters to editor, particularly here in the Star Online, this is considered to be a web corpus if you were to collect them. So for us, we justified that these public letters to the editor is very much reflecting what Malaysians' view of the pandemic. The next thing you want to do is then, kind of focus, give a scope, and this is the timeline that we have decided. The MCO began, I'm sure all of you remember that it began on the 18th of March, and so that was pretty much the beginning of the selection of when we start compiling. And we actually stayed on to see the developments, but up until the 30th of April, we, given the uncertainty at that time, we decided, okay, I guess this is it. This is it. It amounted to 6 weeks. We need to come to a stage where we're pretty much happy, comfortable with the data that we have. And again, this could be very much preliminary, because now that we know the MCO has well, not officially ended, but the restricted part of the MCO has ended quite recently, then we can continue on, or whoever would like to continue on this type of study can finally see the full 3-month period of what people have been saying, right? So in reflecting this is very much what we call a situated discourse, where a lot of the times in discourse analysis or CDA, critical discourse analysis, we talk about how a particular talk or conversation, interaction, they are very much contextual based or contextualized. And so it's very important to have this in mind, because that particular snapshot of the use of language is only going to represent that particular time, and that is very and so it's very essential to talk about the MCO in reporting this. Now, we found that what was interesting in the Star Online opinion section is that not all letters were written by Malaysians. So we kind of find that, oh, we didn't know that. So other people could have written in to the editor, and they could have not been Malaysian, or they were residing in Malaysia, but not necessarily Malaysian. So these are people like expatriates that are perhaps from the embassy that reside in Malaysia and had something to talk about. So these were, discarded because we were very much interested in the scope of Malaysians' view and not others, right? So once we have that, we're pretty much, happy with the total letters that we have, which were 227 letters. And these 227 letters would eventually amount to 130-something thousand words, which the Corpus tool will automatically count for you. And this is where, if this is the case, that all the design, like Dr. Mazura has used to call it the personalized corpus, it's, in other words, the same type, which is called a specialized corpus. Now, let's talk about the IceWeb step-by-step procedure. The step-by-step procedure here involves pretty much four steps for IceWeb. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what normally happens with IceWeb. The first thing you would do is add URLs. So the IceWeb here can systematically keep track of the files you wish to save, and that really helps in the documentation process. I will, perhaps reiterate what Dr. Mazura shared or presented earlier on Lancaster's top or tips for building corpora, and one of them is to save text on separate files and keep notes or the metadata of your corpus, and so IceWeb can do that. Here is the interface of what you would see after you download the tool, the IceWeb tool. So here is the part of labels that you firstly begin looking at in terms of why the metadata here are listed as such. Now remember that this is, again, a tool that was conceived during the ICE project, which is the International Corpus of English. And so they had these metadata already there. And I find that there's nothing wrong with it, because you can actually add your new category. So it could be something else. It could be podcasts. It could be songs, like in Dr. Mazura's case. So there is a part where you can change that. And once you have your region, your country, the category, you can actually run the URL to then bring you to the Google, or in this case Google, because there's a drop-down section where you can choose which web search to use, right? And among them would be Bing, if I'm not mistaken. So if you were to use Google and click on the URL button earlier, it would jump to another web page where the Google typical search interface comes out, and you can see that I actually wanted to search for the Star Online. This is the language that the tool uses in order for the Google search to find out which website, web pages are you interested to look for. I find that this is not necessary, mainly because you can still Google your own if you already know the particular website that you have in mind, like in my case, the Star Online. So I can easily go there and open up which part of the website I would like to take the web pages from or URLs from. But one thing I noticed that is important for this type is only because you want the tool, IceWeb, to keep track of where you save the files on your computer, and then it actually gives you that neat categories for you to use later in metadata purposes, documentate purposes. So the next thing, after you have the URLs and you want to retrieve them, this is where you would use the URL search. Earlier, I was looking for the star online, and then I clicked on Run Query. However, like I said, if the run query doesn't really give you the actual website that you wanted, then no problem there. All you need to do is just find the URLs that you want, and you list them down the way I did here. You need to remember that there will be this pop-up already notification up here, where it begins with a hashtag saying that you should add one URL per line, and that's how they count the text. You should, any empty lines or lines starting with hashtag will be skipped automatically. This is also the language of the tool to not confuse which one to be retrieving. And so if you don't want the tool to retrieve the same URL again, you need to put the hashtag. So here I have, began with the URLs that I've kept track. And please remember that at that time during the MCO, we had to keep track of the articles that were being published. So you would not necessarily get everything in one day, right? So you would see the date out here, 28th of April, 29th of April, and then I stopped. And so it's really important to put the hashtags before you continue with the 30th April articles up here, where the tool will then continue retrieving without retrieving the ones that are below here. So I just want to show this web page. This is a typical, interface, or what you would see when you click on a typical web page. So in my case, or in our case, we were interested to look at the opinion letters. Actually, opinion. If you look at the style online, you would have two subcategories of that fall under opinion. So one is the columnist's point of view, and then the second one is letters to editor. So we selected letters because it would be the public's voice, not necessarily limited to columnists that actually are representative of the professional type of writers, right? And so when you get something like this, it's very, very traditional to be copy pasting everything. I recall that was what we have done before. It is very time consuming. And not only did you have to copy paste, you had to then clean up all the metadata that you find is not the focus of your study. And that would include, perhaps this word letters, this date over here, and sometimes a little noise in between to represent the images, something at the bottom where you would have all these disclaimers or commercial type of language or text that you don't necessarily need, and you would then have to, clean them. And so what you do with IceWeb is you see the URL on the top here. All you need to do is just copy this and then paste it in your IceWeb tool. So this is what it would look like, and then the automatic retrieval will be updated under here. I just want to show you that the error messages, right? Those that are not successfully retrieved, they need to be checked out manually. This is something that sometimes occur because of the coding. we call this coding. In Corpus Linguistics, if you use a tool, the normal language coding or text coding that Corpus tools recognize would be the Unicode, and so this kind of would impact if an article that is retrieved from the web page does not follow a particular or is alien, the coding is alien to the tool, then they are not able to retrieve it. That is where, if you take a look again, it would pop up under the error messages. And all there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to go to that individual article. Usually it's not many, it's just one or two, and you would find that sometimes it's usually the curly quotes. The curly quotes that are usually can sometimes be in different coding. And so all you got to do is go to that article and then copy paste that one only. Yeah, so rather than having to copy paste so many articles, texts, there's only a few. That this is because it's just mainly the coding issue. So once you have that and they retrieve it for you, the next stage is to edit the data. I just want to show this part again. Here is where you have the different tabs or features in the IceWeb tool. You begin with the URL search just now, and then the retrieval actually conducts the retrieving for you, which you just need to click on Go. The next part, which was the data or the editing part, is where you click on here, and then you would get a very neatly saved list of your your texts. So these are all in text document. So the type of URLs that you retrieved can easily be converted to a TXT format, and that's why I felt like, oh, that's enough, because that's the bulk of the burden or the work that corpus linguists do, really. In the past, traditionally, people have been manually copy pasting, and it was very taxing. So now with, even tools that have been around for some time, like IceWeb, you can actually get a lot of work done just by compiling your word list, your texts in Notepad for you. So this is very, very useful. And once you have this, and you can see that the naming or the numbering is done neatly with the title and stuff, all you need, and you can see here, I just want to highlight that you can see where the tool saves it for you in terms of the categories explained earlier, which again refers back to what we've been saying about keeping information about your text, keeping notes, saving metadata. And so that would be saying that these are particularly letters from, you can give it a different category, whether it is editorials or stuff or podcasts or such, and then it's either, if it's from Malaysia, or again, you can always change that category in the ICE tool configuration. Okay, so that's basically what edit data does. It converts your retrieval URLs to raw TXT. There's also a part where you can tag the text, and these are what Dr. Mazura earlier talked about, using clause as a tool and such. So just like other tools, other more powerful tools like Lengthbox, you can have the text already tagged for you, and all you need to do later is you would want to clean it. This is always the case with IceWeb. You can actually select on the text, and then there will be a separate file where you can see the actual text in the web page in a browser where you can then compare, just, you know, to check. It's always good to check whether the tool has retrieved it accurately, because if you don't, you can always add, or you can know which part of the text is being collected, because some parts, again, like I said, it would be information that you don't need, like captions to an image is not the focus of your study, then you could just erase that. So it's very good comparing that using IceWeb instead of, you know, having to go do it yourself. So that's basically the third step. And then finally, these are features of IceWeb that would contribute to the corpus analytical features. I think n-grams and concordancing, you know, I don't want to be talking about them here. I feel they are very well shared with IceWeb, because, like Dr. Mazura said, IceWeb also normalizes your text for you, the words, and so there's no problem. You can go ahead with the n-grams and concordancing, but only for today's presentation, I'm sharing with you the analysis that that my colleague and I, Mimi and I, we've decided to use Wordsmith tools because we're very much used to Wordsmith tools. I guess I'm a big fan of Wordsmith tools, and so these are the typical analytical procedures if you were to conduct a typical corpus study. So, like I said, once you have a very neat corpus, all of your texts are in TXT format, they're neatly saved, clean, and so on and so forth, you're ready for the analysis. The typical starting of a corpus study is the word list. The word list, I know some people are saying, you know, what's with frequency, but frequency is important to talk about in terms of aboutness. The frequency will show you what a text is typically about. And the more the text is about a word, in this case, words referring to the virus, then you know that, you know, the text is going to be about that. Not only do we talk about frequency, one of the arguments with regard to word lists is that most of the previous studies have only looked at frequency, and this can be misleading if you were only to look at frequency. And so here I would want to highlight that you should be using range as well. Range here means you not only select the most frequent type of words, but you should also select those that are distributed fairly or even more in a lot of texts. So we say this or call it as range in corpus linguistics. So what we have found is that the 66 frequent words, they were not only highly ranked, but they were also distributed across 50 or more % of the text. So we've identified COVID-19 as one of the salient words identified. Okay, so, you know, back to how many texts that we were looking at, we can say that COVID-19 occurred more than 50% of the 227 letters and worthy to be investigated. After you have, you know, come up with a word list, decided for which words are worth furthering your analysis into, the next thing, or the most typical, would be to look at the collocations. Collocations here is the co-occurrence of words, or the frequently associated words happening around a certain word. In other words, it is called co-text. And it's always good to reflect on Bill Lowe's quote on the importance of knowing a word is by looking at the company a word keeps. So that is pretty much what collocation is about, and we call that a collocate. And this is where we find out how the co-occurring words surrounding a search or a key term, such as COVID-19, tells us more about how COVID-19 is being used. So one of the things in Wordsmith tools I think is not found in AEISHA web tool is that there is statistic measures that you can use to show the relationship of words. And we have found that T-score and MI is a good combination. T-score, you have to understand here that the measures in statistics would not measure everything. They actually measure a certain thing. So for T-score, for instance, you would find that T-score would show more frequent collocates compared to MI, which would look at words that are not necessarily frequent, but the strength of association is so much so that you wouldn't find the words not occurring together, and these include idiomatic expressions. These would include idioms, metaphors, and so you wouldn't see idioms and metaphors very frequent, right? They are not frequently used, but you cannot deny that they are very strong in nature, and these are also very important to use as a measuring tool when you want to decide what would the collocates be in this case for you, right? So after you see the collocates and the, combining the two, you could get a very good overlap of collocates that are not only frequent, but they are also pretty much strongly associated with the keyword. Then you will want to see, okay, so what now? You want to look at the words in context. And this is a very simple thing to do with the concordancing tool. Concordancing, just like in IceWeb, it's also offered. And this is very much where the tool uses or gives you a perfect view of the word in context in the text, and it can show you very much what patterns can come about, and I'm excited to show some of them in the next slides. Before I go, move on. I find that this is where arguments against corpus linguistics being very much quantitative. Actually, it's a very good balance. When you use concordancy, you then further analyze or give an in-depth analysis of what it means by the words situated in the middle of the context. This is where corpus gives you the qualitative part. And I feel like more and more interested to do corpus-assisted discourse analysis, where then we look at the use of COVID-19 in the particular text to look at what people are, how people are using it, and what do they mean by it. So here is where I want to show or share some findings based on the COVID-19 public opinion letters, very specific here during the 6-week initial MCO period paper, to share with all of you. The first thing, like I said, is the word lists, right? And so the word list, what we can do, I like to do, is to categorize your list of words. Maybe, I've been, this is a big practice when I was studying my PhD under the tutelage of Monica Benaric. So she would ask us to, what next? When you get a word list, what do you want to do with it? So when you look at the word list, you can immediately see the first thing is that they are consisted or comprised of functional lexical words. And so when you do that, you can see that there are many more grammar-related words. And then there's like a few here, maybe 10? words related to content. Yeah, and so this is where we following the design, right? Remember earlier when I said about not only frequent, but I want to look at range. And so these are 66 words that are not only frequent, you have to remember they are distributed more, across the corpus in 50% or more of the text. So they are very much important, salient words. And so COVID-19 was the one that we want to, use at the moment for our paper. And this is where we talk about how salient words would show us, what the corpus is about. And you can see here that a lot of the content words are referring to the pandemic, obviously. So the next thing, when we have, explained a little bit about the word list, we want to then look at collocates, right? So in the collocational analysis, this is how one of the ways you can present your data. Again, we used a combination of T-score and MI. So these are your frequent or strongly associated collocates with the word COVID-19. And mind you, another interesting thing about this is that you can select very specific collocates, either appearing right to the word, left of the word, in how many spaces or spans they call it. So this is where we were interested to look at the collocates appearing immediately to the right of the key term, search term, which would then give us a good syntactical pattern of the phrase COVID-19 what. And so, as you can see from the list, it's interesting to find out that pandemic is the most frequently associated word. However, it's not as strong as COVID-19 outbreak or COVID-19 patient. And so you want to, see that if you were to rely on just one statistic measure, it could be misleading. So here are some of the interesting findings. You can explain this further, that COVID-19 in these letters are normally used to describe the noun, which is a subject, or like in this case, nouns referring to medical type of nouns like patients and cases, or COVID-19 is also being described here to the pandemic or an outbreak. Even I was interested in the COVID-19 law. That was quite interesting because then you would find that in the text, this actually stemmed from one single text, but was quite strong in association because of the very much occurrences of COVID-19 law in that particular text. Speaking about, if I can remember clearly, it was talking about a suggestion to the government about having a COVID-19 law. I don't know about the results of that. I don't think we've heard of anything yet in the news. So that was just one of the suggestions that was brought up in the letters. I find that the last one is interesting. It's not COVID-19 is used as an adjective to describe a noun. In fact, COVID-19 here acts as a subject, and it is doing something, or followed with a verb. And this, in this case, is COVID-19 does. So I'm just going to, ask the audience, would you know what line would come up next in relation to COVID-19 does? So if you were to guess, the findings showed that COVID-19 does not discriminate was the one that we picked up from the letters. And this is an interesting finding that people people not only use COVID-19 as a subject, but also giving it, personalizing it, giving it a feature, an animate feature of some kind, which is interesting for other maybe other studies that would want to look at meanings. This is an illustration of typically what we just saw, the collocation analysis. You can do this using Wordsmith tools of a word cloud. And what it normally shows is how the most central, huge, obvious word in the middle is the most glaring collocate, frequently or strongly associated with what you wanted to find. And yeah, this is now, something that you can find in many corpus tools now. Okay, here is COVID-19 pandemic in context. I remember the next step is, after collocation analysis, is to look at concordancing. So this is what I meant by a concordance tool would nicely put or neatly put your search term in the middle, and then you would have context to the right and to the left of your lines here. I know, at first it may be overwhelming if you could see, if you get COVID-19 pandemic occurring in more than 30 lines, you would have so many because the concordancing would take a look or take a snapshot of how many occurrences, that not only how many, but it will give you the specific line that it occurred in. And so with Corpus, you can actually move this around and highlight which part that you are interested to then describe your findings. One of the things that we did was, perhaps you want to look at some patterns here to the left of COVID-19 pandemic or to the right of COVID-19 pandemic, and this is what we've basically found. First thing is, we can say that COVID-19 pandemic has affected or influenced someone, something, and that led for certain consequences to happen. In these instances, we can pull out from the concordance lines that these are similar in terms of how it is used, yeah? So COVID-19 pandemic is often used with the prepositional phrase of the, and in this case, you can talk about the impact as a result, in light of, and that creates this meaning up here. So what you would normally do when you find similar characteristics of how a phrase is being used, you want to then group it and give some kind of description. What is the similarity there? And in this case, it's about affecting, and then you can see what happens afterwards are the consequences, the funds that are being dispersed, the impacts are economies, economists have predicted what, educational institutions would do what. And then the other thing is that COVID-19 pandemic also is used to describe temporal dietic expressions. And this is in the case of in the midst, since the outbreak. Yeah. And when you talk about that, you are seeing how COVID-19 pandemic is used to give a situation. And that's pretty much dietic in nature. Okay. Not just that, but it is temporal. It is talking about a specific time. And that's where we lead to further analyzing the discourse, because we have collected, we are aware that this was written during the MCO period, which leads us, in doing a proper corpus discourse, corpus assisted discourse analysis, you want to be able to understand the use of that during a given time, which make it very situated. And then another thing is that it also describes the virus's traits as complex and massive. And that's why we argue that one of the reasons COVID-19 pandemic is very often used is because writers will describe it as complex, very massive in nature, enormity, and a pandemic is the word is in itself meaning widely, affecting, the globally affecting, and so that's why maybe COVID-19 pandemic is strongly collocated here. I want to show that number 5 is kind of interesting. One legacy of the COVID-19 pandemic should be that I find that in this letter, using legacy here is not only to talk about the temporal, in a sense, this writer is giving a positive connotation to COVID-19 pandemic. Usually legacies are referred, if you look up the word legacy, it's always co-occurring with wealth, inheriting wealth, or legacy of someone very famous, or something positive. Very rarely do we see legacy occurring with something bad. So in the use of legacy here, the letter was very much optimism in nature, optimistic. And so the writer is trying to uplift, the mood and try to give some kind of motivation. This was a letter by a representative from the medical department. I believe it was a nurse, and so it was found to be used in this way, and I believe that we can learn a lot from how people write. Just like what Dr. Mazura says, it would lead to some form of narrative that people use and influence the public, and so letters, especially from public, and in this case the frontliner, would reach out to those reading and kind of be motivated or uplifted. The use of words definitely to show some kind of language function or meaning. So I'm about to end. Taking stock. Let me see the time. All right, perfect. Taking stock or some reflections. Number 1 is that the web crawlers are there. Don't worry, no more collecting online text manually. I, however, want to say that Linguistics, a bunch of us joined the Lyle webinars that I've just shared the link with you all. They run very impressive webinars from speakers around the world, and just recently, 2 days ago, Vaslav Brzezina from Lancaster, they came up with Linguistics version 5, which is the latest one, and they are very advanced in terms of combining all that you need to do a corpus analysis under one tool, and very excited to use Linguistics in the future, also freely available. The second one is just remember that in corpus studies, it's very much important to have proper documentation, and this I hope to have shown. IceWeb has done it systematically. To me, quite easy for a beginner. Maybe Linguistics could be a little bit intimidating, but you can try out with IceWeb first. The web corpus or corpora, this is taking stock for the future. If you are interested to do what we call multimodal study, this is where you take stock of other meta-linguistic features that I have shown you that could also lead to understanding how language is used in texts to create some kind of impact. And not just the text, it involves images, it involves headlines, captions, even feedback at the bottom of, now we have feedback in everything that we read. So it's really an avenue for you to explore. Finally, I would say the takeaway is that a corpus-based linguistics is very much a method to approach language analysis for any specific purpose. It's just limitless, but it would take some time for us to even talk about things that we can do with corpus in other types of data outside of the discipline, of English language. We can talk about how languages, like Dr. Mazura has shown, how languages being represented in various type of discourse, not limited to any discipline. So yeah, I hope you have a little bit of information now on corpus-based linguistics research. And if you are interested, please sign up with us. We have this Malaysian Corpus network that we are trying to build for those of you who are doing research in the area, or maybe those who have just started and want to know more. Please sign up here. Maybe I can share the link in the chat box. And then also stay tuned with the 4th Malaysian Corpus Research Symposium, hopefully to be conducted before the year ends. It had to be postponed due to the recent pandemic, but yeah, we're very happy to try and see whether we can collect us or get as many people as we can to join us over there. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Now we can ask for questions.
Dr. Aisha, Saidato here.
Hi, Dr. Aisha.
Hi. I'm not sure whether my question is valid for corpus linguistics, but what we are doing now is research on alternative assessment. So the simple question is that if we have a whole list, a huge amount of data from UITM, for example, and all the different types of assessments that we do, whether it's alternative or not, would that constitute like a corpus?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It seems like, Dr. Sai, especially for your team, you would have, I can imagine, a lot of text. So in that case, all you got to do is, if you have a proper documentation of it, then you just need to convert that to TXT, and then a Corpus tool can help you to analyze whatever I just showed earlier. Yeah, definitely.
I suppose I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been on my mind, but now that I've listened to you, well, I'm sorry, I just joined halfway because I had a class earlier, but I think it's very interesting that I should have gone into corpus. I do look at I'm in assessment. But thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Most welcome. See you later, Dr. Tai.
Yeah, later.
Anybody else with a question?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Aisha. Roslina here.
Hey, Dr. Rose, Kak Rose, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Just a quick question here. Somebody asked me just now, can we mine data from Instagram, Facebook using IceWeb?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because I have a student who is interested to look at language in Twitter, especially Dr. Hisham's recent Twitter on COVID-19, especially. I haven't tried it actually, but I would love to go ahead and see, because Twitter, you would have the specific, as long as you have that HTML or that URL code. So I'm not so sure. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe we can both try and see. And if that works, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting, right?
Yeah, I would like to try it. I mean, I haven't really done it, so I'm really sorry. But yeah, we can definitely give it a try, and maybe keep updated. Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? I mean, I can also take questions for those who are still new to Corpus Ling. I mean, on behalf of APB as well as the Malaysian Corpus Research Committee, we are very excited to get as many people on board, and like Dr. Mazra has said, create this network that we can keep abreast with the going-ons in research, Corpus research. Any students in the webinars today joining? No?
All lecturers.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm the student.
Yes, she can. I see you. Great question to Dr. Mazra on that. Yeah, normalizing is very important, and you can do it with tools like that now. They do that for you automatically. I don't know. Oh, hi.
Doctor, I have a question. I'm Daljit from EPB Sri Iskandar.
Hello, nice to have you here.
Yeah, just joined last week.
Oh,
10
cool.
days ago.
Welcome.
Okay. I've done Corpus actually when I was doing my master's in say, under applied linguistics. So looking at the pandemic going on now, and we are setting up a lot of questions. Short question answers in using Google Form, right?
Right.
So have you ever thought about doing something on collocation of abbreviation that students may use and which we may apply in setting up our marking scheme, so it can be included as a guideline for the lecturers?
Oh, acronyms.
Yeah, abbreviations, for example, certain abbreviations, for example, kilometers.
Right.
Students, they normally put km.
Right.
Okay, so and there are a few abbreviations, for example, MCO.
Right.
Instead of writing a full word. So all this, like, the frequency of collocation the students are using. So it can be actually a guideline for examiners when they want to set up question papers.
I think that's correct there, Daljit. The point that was taken is for the corpus to read the text, they use a Unicode, a kind of language, a program of coding to understand what constitutes a word. So if you even use abbreviations like MCO, like KM, it will come out in the retrieval, in the automatic extraction of those words, definitely. Yeah, so it would lead you to how many times it is being used, and then it would be, like I said, the tool would consider it as a word. And so if it is a word, it would be very much interesting, like for you, to investigate abbreviations and how students use them, and perhaps see a pattern, like a pattern in which maybe the rise of abbreviations in students' writing has now increased, so much so that you may want to, call out for a revamp in the, like you said, assessment rubrics. I don't know, which is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Doctor.
No worries. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Lisa, back over to you. I think we have exceeded time. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, right. Thank you very much, Dr. Aisha, for a very insightful section today, right? So is there any more question from the audience? No, yeah. So I guess no more question from the audience. So that's all for today's session, Dr. Siti Aisha Johari. Thank you very much for a great session today. So for you ITM staff, don't forget to fill in the attendance link. The link has been provided to you in the chat box, and hope to see everyone again in the coming APB Scholar webinar series. Thank you very much, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Wan. Assalamualaikum. Bye.